Series here, broadcast live on the Radical Race Series YouTube channel and on JPB Broadcasting YouTube channel. I am James Parfitt, and joining me in the booth this evening is Ewan O'Leary. Once again, we are back for another amazing week of racing here, and we're live from Okayama in Japan using iRacing, the world's premier simulator. Now, the drivers are calling this track Slipperyama. Well, we're going to find out how they're going to get on. And last time out in Spa, with Simon Edwards taking the top spot with Mike Bousson in second and Austin Gretorix in third place. Now, the upside as well is we're only in race one. You know, we've got race two and we've got 16 laps of the Okayama circuit. We go on to next week at Interlagos, where we've got 16 laps of Interlagos, and then we go rounding out onto the 6th of October, 6 laps of Le Mans. So be prepared, that's going to be a long one. On the 13th of October, we go to Watkins Glen Boot with a bus stop, but that's another 13-lap race. 20th of October, we go to Mid-Ohio, and then the 27th, rounding out October, we go to the Fuji GP circuit. And it's going to be an absolute incredible evening of racing. We've got quali, 10 minutes of open quali, and then we've got a 16-lap race. And I think, to be fair, that balls in nicely, bringing in Ewan into the booth. Ewan, how are you, young sir?
Yeah, doing very well. Looking forward to another race here of this series. You mentioned it at their second round here at Okayama. Not a driver's favourite, I've got to say, which is in stark contrast to what we saw at Spa. A lot of people were enjoying themselves out last week, just driving on their own. But I feel like people haven't been enjoying driving this circuit quite as much. However, it is one of those circuits that people have a lot of practice on. You tend to get a lot of practice if you are an iRacer. You will, and you're watching this, you will probably know this circuit, or even if it's not in its full layout where you've driven it, you will have at least driven some of this circuit at some point, because it is one of those free tracks you get straight off the bat, and it is used fairly regularly when you are running a lower series in terms of rankings. So everybody will be very familiar with this circuit, but from what we've been grasping throughout the week, not everybody has been particularly enjoying themselves, no matter how familiar they are.
I think that's the thing, right? And I think this whole new model that they brought in for the SR10, the whole new setup models, everything, the tyre deck, it's just been killing people. You know, setup-wise, it's a lot more to try and get involved with, to try and not deg out your tyres right near the end. People are finding it they've got to brake 10 metres earlier. You know, we touched on this last week. It's changed from what people are used to, and I think that's what's causing a lot of people the problem, because they can't just get in it like they can the SR8 and just bomb it around the track. You know, you haven't got the brake late, throwing it into the corners. You've got to lift, and you're lifting a lot further back than you normally would to hit the brake.
I think as well, this is the first time that we've gone to Okayama under this new car, so it'll be a trip into the unknown for pretty much everybody here this week. And I don't think we've actually seen it for most of this year. I think we saw it in season one, but since then we haven't. So in whatever capacity, we haven't been visiting this circuit in nearly 8 months now, which is a long, long time ago. And some of these drivers obviously have got very good I rating, they've got good safety rating, and so they won't really visit Okayama very much in the series that they run week to week, whether that be in the Radical here, which a lot of these guys do drive almost solely. But also in any other series that they may drive, they won't be going around this circuit very often. So it may be one where they're a little bit out of practice, despite the amount of laps that they would have run around here. And of course, as I mentioned, it's a step into the unknown for all of the drivers, really. We've not been to this circuit in this car just yet, so everybody will have been having to figure this one out through the week. And we know that preparation for this race started a long time ago. I think it was Simon Edwards who was the first to really start complaining about this circuit just a little bit, and maybe that's being writ large for us in the lap times at the moment, because he is only down in 4th place, which is not what you'd expect from a three-time series champion and of course the race winner last week.
Exactly, and that takes us on to the current championship standards. Obviously, this is only after one race, Grives. So we have got Simon Edwards on top with 40 points, Mike Buson in second on 35, Austin Gretorix in third on 31, Paul Clark on 28 in fourth, Paul Crabb in fifth, Ben Underdown sixth, Luke Maxwell in seventh, sorry, get my teeth working, Jamie Bird in 8th, Colin Wynn in 9th, David Rolliston in 10th, Oliver Ettridge in 11th, Michael LeMay in 12th. Dominic Webb, he's a new one. We're quite sure what's actually gone on there. But there you go. Paul LeMay in 14th, Martina Ward in 15th, Damien G in 16th, Darryl Taylor 17th, Phil Glover down in 18th place. Dave Dowson in 19th, Graham Brown 20th, David Kirkman and Scott Lear both on 0 points down in 21st and 22nd. Ewan, is it as bad as what the drivers are saying? Is the slippiness as bad as what we're hearing from these drivers?
Well, I think it's a case really of just finding out for us. It's not very easy for us to really know what these guys are thinking. We heard as well Simon Edwards yesterday talking a little bit about warming the tyres during qualifying. That can only really get them properly up to temperature. Well, not even properly, but can only get them into a sort of the lower end of an operating window on the 4th flying lap, which is no real use when you've got only 3 flying laps in one of these qualifying sessions. So that's going to be a bit of a problem, especially looking at the conditions right now. I don't know the exact figures, but it doesn't look very warm. We are, of course, getting down towards the end of the year now. It is very much autumn, as I'm finding out in the UK right now. And it's getting cold. It's getting very cold up in the Northern Hemisphere. So it's iRacing, of course, running on the date that it is in real life, or a similar date. And so we start to see at this time of year the temperatures going down quite a lot, and that's not going to help when you're trying to warm up these tyres. We talk all the time about the tyres and how slippy they are, first of all, but also warming them up in the qualifying session. It's actually pretty impossible for them to do that. And judging by what Simon Edwards said earlier, a pole time may well be in the high 22s here today, unless they can find a lot of time compared to where they were yesterday.
Yeah, the time and is on top. We've gone back in time again. It's April 1st, 2022. 7 o'clock, and it's 23 degrees currently. So, not boiling for these guys.
That was a track temperature, certainly.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the thing. It's not boiling for them. So it's manageable, but at the same time, they've still got to be able to get their tyres warm, and you can't do it. Now, one of the interesting things I did see the other day is a driver that I'm aware of did a whole endurance race in the Radical, and he went and did 90 minutes on one set of tyres. Now, when I was talking to him, I said, did you not burn them up? Because you're expecting after 90 minutes for it to go completely wrong, aren't you? They're going to burn up. They're going to be all over the place. And he turned around and said, well, the philosophy was as they get lower, they get better. They get through that initial, temperature burning up phase, and then you've got what's left of the tyres after. Now, that's a philosophy that I've not heard before. But it seemed to work for him and the person in front who also did the same strategy, and they come away 1 and 2 and never change tyres once.
Yeah, I guess it all depends really on a number of things, because track temperatures, the track that you're at, and how they're driving, I guess, all has to come into it. But yeah, it does seem very contrary to what we saw last week.
Yeah, we were at Spa. It was the same circuit. It's very bizarre. I can run an hour and a half on the race circuit and have no problems at all, because they've kind of, how can I get it? They've gone past the initial graining. I think if we were talking F1 terms with graining, they've managed to clear the graining off the tyre, and it's left with a clear tyre at the end of it. And as I say, they went a whole hour and a half on the tyre set that they were on, and managed to make it through without any problem. So I don't know if the longer the tyres go, the better they get. If you can get past that initial slip stage, which may take a couple of laps, 2 or 3 laps, I suppose, to burn off. But it's definitely got people thinking. I think that's the point after all my elongated story here, Ewan. I think my point is about it's got people thinking that if they try something and it works, they know what to do with the tyre setup. And it's not often you hear people say, oh, as we can see Mike Boost on there going straight into the barrier. Clearly that wasn't the way to go. But I don't know, Ewan, maybe there's always something that drivers try, isn't there, when they're going out getting set up, sorted out. And maybe that's what they've tried. Maybe they ran for an hour and a half and they've literally turned around and said, well, if we can run that long without any issues, then obviously, you know, they've managed to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, it will certainly have got people thinking, but there's a very big difference between thinking you can do something and actually executing it. So it's very difficult, really. And I think the kind of theory about tyres getting almost better as you go on, I think Luke Maxwell would have something to say about it, to be honest, given what we saw from him last week, given the spin that he had late on in that race at Spa 1 week ago, and particularly what we saw from him at Phillip Island last season as well, where his tyres completely fell off a cliff at that very, very high-speed racetrack. So I'm not entirely sure what the way to go is here, but you can just see visibly right now, talking of tyres, they are not up to temperature. This is a flying lap, believe it or not. I think it's Paul Crabb coming over the line right now. He's set a purple sector through the middle, last couple of purple sectors actually, but he's in the 23s. That's 1.2 seconds slower than the best lap time in practice. So while we're not quite as far away from the high 22s as I thought we'd be, we still are absolutely nowhere near peak pace, and you can almost see it with your own eyes. Don't need a stopwatch to tell.
Yeah, you know, Paul Crabb's gone on to pole 1:23.46. Simon Edwards 1:23.48. As I say, I'm not expecting the times to stay there, but again, they can't get them up to temperature, so we could end up with that time being around that point. But why are they struggling? This is what I mean. We've got some, you know, very good drivers in this league. Simon Edwards 7k, Paul Crabb 4.5k, Dan Webster 4.2. Austin Gretorix 4.3, Luke Maxwell 4.1. Why are they then, Dan, struggling with tyres in this car that they can't seem to get going? I know it's a myth of what is happening, and I know that the drivers can't work it out either, but it just seems so bizarre that they cannot get this together.
I think it comes a little bit down to tyre temperatures, a little bit, track temperatures, in terms of getting these tyres up, because there's only so much you can do about track temperatures. As there we go from Luke Maxwell, he's clearly got that car up to speed with a 1:22.6, still half a second away from where we were at the end of practice, but that's a good deal quicker than what we've seen in the past. Simon Edwards as well has done a good lap time there, gotten into the 22s. As I mentioned, he was saying only yesterday that he struggled to get into the 22s at all after 3 laps of qualifying. He's clearly managed to get that down a little bit, so clearly there has been a bit of progress throughout the week. You can be sure that the drivers will have been doing the official races, just trying to figure this car out a little bit and figure this track out a little bit. That seems to have happened, because already we're seeing times at 3 times now in the 22s. But once again, it is going to be this third and final lap time that really decides the pole position, and it looks like it's going to be between 3 drivers: Luke Maxwell, Simon Edwards, and also Webster as well in that third place.
Yeah, Dan Webster as well, popping it in on a 1:22.92. As we said, there's only 3 drivers, and that seems quite bizarre of a field, this, you know, with this much strength in it. We've got 17 drivers on track. We've got varied of I rating. We've got varied, obviously, you know, some people say I rating don't really mean a lot, and to be honest, will it, does it, who knows? But at the end of the day, they've managed to break the 1:22.64s. Paul Crabb's just gone across the line on a 1:22.54. 3. He's currently flying along as well. Mike Buson is on an all green sectors currently. He's just got his final one to do. He's managing to hold it on track. Webster is off track. That is what the little red dot means next to his name. But what can Mike Buson do? Has he broken into the 22s currently at the moment? No, he didn't. His last lap time was not as fast as his others, and unfortunately he has not. But Ben Underdown is another one on an all-green sector as well. 1:24.13 currently his best time, goes up into 6th place on a 1:23.65. So the times are progressing, Ewan. The times are progressing, but they're still not quite where we expected them to be. But they're getting there, which is reassuring for these drivers and quite a good confidence booster, I think. The fact that obviously they're able to at least be able to get something out of these tyres.
Well, we're not quite to where we were in practice, but that's not expected really, because let's not forget they had 2 hours during practice to get themselves up to speed. And they only have 3 flying laps here, so it's difficult to deliver that under pressure anyway, taking out of the equation the tyre and temperature debates that we've been having a little bit. But yeah, it's not bad lap times are up towards the front. We're only 3-4 tenths away from where we were in practice, and it doesn't really matter for the race in terms of lap times. Qualifying is a little bit more important, of course, in terms of what lap time you're actually doing. You're focusing on it a bit more. However, during the race, it really won't be much of a focus for these drivers, I wouldn't imagine. They're just looking to go as fast as possible with the drivers or with the car that they have around them. So lap times don't matter too much. It's just about tackling this race in the best way possible, and that's what they're going to try and do. But yeah, it's not been a bad qualifying session. A little bit of a surprise, I suppose. Paul Crabb jumping up towards the end there to get pole position, but it's well deserved, and he's gotten nice bit of a lead, or a nice bit of an advantage, I should say, in that session with the times.
Yep, absolutely. We are waiting for the results to come through. We're going to probably have to wait about another minute and a half for the results to come through because of the session time has not expired. So therefore, that gives me chance to talk about our sponsor for the year, our charity, that here at the Radical Race Series are donating and are pushing for out as well. And supporting this year is Mast Cell Action. Mast cell activation syndrome affects 1 in 300,000 people and forms part of the spectrum of mast cell disorders. People with MCAS suffer from inappropriately triggered inflammation leading to a wide range of symptoms, namely anaphylactic and life-threatening allergic reactions. MCAS can often take 5 years to diagnose. Due to complexity of the diagnosis procedure, Mast Cell Action aims to reduce this by 3 years to just 2, allowing treatment to begin at an earlier stage. All information can be found down in the YouTube video description, guys, as well. So please, if you want to go and find out more about it, head over to www.mastcellaction.org, and there is a donate link down in the chat as well. So there we go. That is the charity that the Radical Race Series are supporting this year. So there we go. Absolutely incredible from these guys supporting a charity each year. I think that is an absolute amazing thing to be doing. And, it's not often that people get supported, Dan. And I think for a community to come together and support one charity overall, that's epic.
It is very good. And as we mentioned last week, it's a thing that's done every season by the Radical Race Series, so it's good to do that. But here we go, setting up for race 2. Here's the grid, and we're about to get underway.
Yeah, Paul Crabb is on pole, Luke Maxwell on second, Dan Webster third, Simon Edwards fourth, Mike Buson in fifth, Austin Gretorek sixth, Ben Underdown seventh, Patrick Charlton in eighth, Graham Brown ninth, Michael LeMay in 10th, Oliver Ettridge in 11th, Damien G down in 12th place. So below Damien G, we've got Paul LeMay in 13th, Dominic Lang-Webb in 14th, Dave Dawson in 15th, David Rolliston 16th, and Phil Jocelyn down in 17th place there. 17 cars on track. Can everybody going to be rushing down into turn 1, Ewan? What do you think we are going to be physically expecting from this race?
Well, it's going to be a very entertaining one, a very difficult one, and one where it's going to be pretty difficult to overtake, really. There's not that many opportunities. You kind of got a half chance down towards turn number 1. You've got the biggest chance, of course, down into the hairpin at turn 5. But other than that, it's very, very difficult to overtake, especially in these cars. Not really designed for it, although then again, the bigger cars make their way around this circuit in real life. So we'll see how they get on, and we'll see how they race around here. But it could be tricky.
Yep, here we go. The lights are coming on now. 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights. And we are go, go, go from Okayama here with the Radical Race Series. Currently is Paul Crabb leading us down into turn 1. Dan Webster is trying to battle along Simon Edwards currently as well. And that is Simon down into 4th place. Mike Buson in 5th, Austin Gretorix 6th, Ben Underdown into 7th. There's been some changes. Luke Maxwell, as by the looks of it, is still out on track. Oh, it's gone round Luke Maxwell and Dan Webster. That is waiting till the very end. And they have gone down there, Luke Maxwell and Dan Webster. I was just about to say, Ewan, they all got off cleanly, but clearly they didn't.
It was a clean turn 1 and 2 section at least, but down into the hairpin at turn 4 there was a bit of a dive from Dan Webster. In the end he broke too late, really got into the side of Luke Maxwell, and they both ended up going around, and it's ruined both of their races really. Down in 15th and 16th positions now. Everybody else able to gain 2 free places. Yeah, it's a real shame. As Dave Dowson actually has been off towards the end of the lap. I think that was at turn 8. He might have gotten some help, but he's dropped down in behind Luke Maxwell despite that early spin. So a real shame, but I would, on early viewing, have to pin the opening one on Dan Webster. Certainly can't pin that one on anyone other than Dave Dowson, though.
Yeah, he touched the grass. Trying to break on the grass is never a good idea, Ewan. And for Dave Dowson there, he attempted it and it didn't work. The thing is, look at Paul Crabb, 2.5 seconds. Oh, nearly 2.5 seconds gap already. Gainers and losers are up. Crabb's not gained anything. He's been there. He started off as well. Maxwell down 12. Webster down 13. Everybody else, including Jocelyn, up 5. Ettridge up 6. Oliver Ettridge must have got an absolute barnstorming start there, Ewan, and managed to make it through without any issues.
Yeah, he's had a really, really good start here, but doesn't seem to quite have the pace of those just up in front. You can see a bit of a battle developing between Edwards, Booston and Gretorix at the moment, so doesn't quite have the pace of those guys, although it does look like Edwards is slightly holding up those 2 cars behind him. We'll see how he gets on as the tyres really get up to temperature, as he really gets into the rhythm of this race now as well. But it's not going to be a very long one. It's not a long lap around here, and only 16 laps on the cards here today. It's the same here as it is at Interlagos, which seems a bit wild, but anyway, it's not a long race, so they do need to get on with it in terms of making these overtakes, although as I said earlier, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, because it brings a different added pressure when somebody turns around and says to you, oh, by the way, you've only got 16 laps, get on with it. You know, that's not the mindset that you can really go into with this. You've got to try and keep it on track. You know, Dominic Langweb is having a battle here with Paul LeMay and Phil. Jocelyn's about 4 tenths behind, and LeMay is 4 tenths in front, as we see Jocelyn just spitting up a big bunch of dirt there, just taking a little bit of a wide exit. But you can't kind of rush this process, Dan, and I think that's the thing that people are not always incoherent with, that you can't rush the race, even though you've only got 16 laps, but you can't rush it, because otherwise it will only lead to mistakes in this car.
It will do, but I mean, it's sprint racing after all, so you do need to get on with it. You can't wait around forever and wait for the opportunities to fall into your lap. You've got to make some of them yourself, and that's what Mike Bouston's going to attempt to do right now, despite the fact that Simon Edwards has picked up the pace a little bit. It's still not quick enough for him. Oh, and there's contact. Bouston tried the move. Edwards had a right to be there. Difficult to tell from that angle who was really at fault, but it didn't look good for Mike Bouston from that angle. Now Simon Edwards, race winner from 1 week ago, drops down outside the top 10. This will be a better chance to see just whether Bouston was too late or whether Edwards turned in. Bouston realised his mistake halfway through that, really. I think you can tell that with the locking of the brakes.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately for Mike Bousson, that has brought Austin Gutierrez right up behind him now. These guys are going to be going too wide around the Williams before they drop down the Moss S's into Atwood curve. And at the moment, though, what's Bousson going to be thinking? Because at the end of the day, he went for a gap. It wasn't theirs. Him and Simon Edwards have come to contact. You know, obviously he's going to apologise. I don't doubt that as well. Mike is kind of too nice of a guy not to apologise. But at the same time, he's kind of dropped him into the hands of Austin Gutierrez. And, you know, Austin, as we saw with his third place finish last week, is no slouch. So Mike's really kind of under pressure at the moment to be able to get this car, as they drop down through Revolver, really going again. And hopefully he's got no kind of side effect damage from that incident with Simon Edwards.
You shouldn't have too much damage. These cars are pretty sturdy, really, in our racing, so you don't have to worry about it too much. And it doesn't seem to have affected Simon Edwards either, by the way, because down the field he has already made up another place into 11th from 12th, where he dropped down to. Phil Jocelyn has been his first victim, and really to see Simon Edwards and Luke Maxwell, the two protagonists from last season, already outside the top 10 in this race is going to produce a really good one indeed. Although we're already a quarter of the way through, unfortunately, we are still going to get to see Edwards and Maxwell going through the field like you wouldn't believe throughout this race, and I think Phil Jocelyn has actually realised this, and he's getting out the way, you can see, down the straight possibly, or was it a defence? Not quite sure, but they're going to be very, very exciting to watch throughout the remainder of this race.
Yeah, Paul LeMay is having a battle with Webb. He's chasing down G in front of him. Simon Edwards there has made his moves. Luke Maxwell's trying to make moves through as well. And Phil Jocelyn has kind of all of a sudden got down 2 places. But Ewan, I think we kind of accepted that. Dan Webster is making his way back through the field as well. There goes David Rollison, 1 dispatched, on they go again. However, this midfield battle, this pack of cars here, we've got starting with G, LeMay, Webb and Edwards. It's got to be tough for Edwards to get through because obviously, yes, these heat might be faster, Ewan, but at the same time, these guys are fighting. So, you know, they're there on merit. He's where he is because of the incident that he had. And at the end of the day, he's now got to try and work out where's going to be the best place to pick in these, because I can guarantee these guys are going to be mainly focusing on the people in front of them. They're not going to be looking behind at the fact that Simon Edwards is there.
Well, it's always more difficult to go through when you're a leading car like this, when they're all in a situation where everyone's battling, when they're all packed up together like this. It does make your job a little bit harder. However, Edwards will have been used to doing this by now. He will be able to get through here, you would imagine, and possibly even into the top 5, although Ben Underdown might be too far away. He's already down the inside in towards turn number 1 ahead of Dominic Lamb-Webb, and there he goes into that 10th place. Now Luke Maxwell is getting ever closer to him as well, so the two rivals will once again be relatively close on the racetrack, making their way down the hill towards turn 4, the hairpin, the scene of Luke Maxwell's spin earlier in this race.
Yeah, they're down through Atwood curve. There you go. On board with Luke Maxwell, car number 118, chasing down Dominic Lamb-Webb, and we're expecting him to pick up the tow and make his way through the field. With only, though, 10 laps remaining. Here goes Luke Maxwell. He's going to take it up the inside into the hairpin, and that is Luke Maxwell through. The problem is, though, Ewan, one of the things I want to just quickly touch on why we watch Maxwell sieve his way through the field like a hot knife through butter is now him and Simon Edwards are together. And I think the problem is obviously they're both as quick as each other. How are they going to go about this one? Because if they start fighting, they're going to be losing time to the people in front. So it's kind of a, how can I put it, kind of a toss-up, really, what you kind of do.
Yeah, it's a bit of a lose-lose situation, a little bit, because Maxwell will want to get through, obviously, but then again, if he tries to, then he's going to end up finishing the race behind him, or indeed losing time if the two of them fight too much. So we'll see, really. But it's not a great situation for Maxwell to be in. Edwards wanted to make the move there at turn 1, really. He wanted to clear a couple of cars before going through this S section, should I say, and just get through or go at his own pace, I should say, but not able to. And once again, a little bit of a move from LeMay on Damien G, or an attempt at least. That might compromise his exit just enough down the back straight for Simon Edwards to have a go into turn 5.
Yeah, I think he kind of stuck his nose out just to let there. I think that was kind of a half block, half hello, Damien G, I'm here. Paul LeMay still trying to get past Damien G, got the toe. Big luck up from LeMay. carried a little bit more speed into the hairpin section as these guys drop down now into Revolver. This section is quite hard, and as we can see, Simon Edwards go up the inside of Paul LeMay. Paul LeMay then comes back and goes back in front of Luke Maxwell. Maxwell now trying to go up the inside, thinks better of it. We've seen that already with Simon Edwards and Mike Busson, but that is them guys free. Now, one of the interesting things is we've got Dan Webster trying to take the outside line through there of Dominic Webb, dropping down now into the last corner, and he again is going to be chasing down Dominic Webb. I'm expecting Maxwell, though, Ewan, to make this move over Paul LeMay, possibly down into turn 1.
Looks like he's going to drift to the inside line. LeMay not going to fight that one too hard, although he will go right round the outside. The corner does lend itself to that because you get the inside for 2, but LeMay didn't really want any part of that, and so Maxwell is through, and both of them now are inside the top 10, and he leaves behind. Quite an interesting battle, that free car battle between those guys just in behind, but it was a bit of an unconventional pass from Simon Edwards there as Webster tries to make his way down the inside. LeMay just left the door open just a little bit through turn 6, really, and it was a little bit strange. But either way, Simon Edwards wasn't going to say no, and he went straight through in the end.
Yeah,
we'll see just how quick his progress can be into 7th place.
Yeah, absolutely. Damien G and Graham Brown are having this interesting scrap currently at the moment. This is the battle for 7th place on your screen. And here Damien G is looking at sending it up the inside as we see Dominic Webb go off in the background. Damien G is through at Redmond. Can he hold it into Hobbs? He's got the outside line. He's got to be either on the throttle really early, try and maintain that outside run. Here he goes, they're dropping round down Mike Knight corner. Damien G slots in behind him again, and into the last corner we go. Damien G, Graham Brown, Graham Brown run wide, manages to keep it out of the wall, but drops down the order all the way down into 13th. That was kind of unfortunate there for Graham Brown.
It certainly was. He's lost a load of positions as a result, and Damien G now trying not to do the same. Simon Edwards has made his way through on him, but Luke Maxwell couldn't follow through once again. A little bit surprised that Maxwell hasn't been able to make more use of using Simon Edwards to barrel through some of these slower cars compared to these guys, but then again, it is relatively difficult. Should be able to do it down towards the hairpin though, Maxwell. And Simon Edwards doesn't want to give Damien G any slipstream there to try and defend from Luke Maxwell, although we'll have to now. Down the inside for Luke Maxwell. He's later on the brakes, braver on towards the apex, and he does make his way through. And sort of quietly in behind, Dan Webster has been following these guys quite well. Round the outside through 6 and into 7. Oh, difficult, and Damien G, trying to avoid an incident, has gone around.
Oh, poor Damien G. We saw him trying to avoid what was happening, and unfortunately for Damien G, he's now slid down the order faster than an elevator at Trump Towers, and he's gone all the way down into 15th place. Poor Damien G there, not having a good time. Paul LeMay is also not having a good time. He's under pressure from Dominic Webb, and Webb is literally 3 attempts back. And closing, you can see the time going down on your left-hand side. It's gone down to 2 attempts. Is this going to be Webb's opportunity down into turn 1? He's a little bit far back. I don't think he's going to make it this time around. But this is where we're at to that situation now. We got Edwards, Maxwell, and Webster. Webster's got to close the gap up. He's got about, probably about a second back. So we've got a second to the Edwards and Maxwell and a second to Maxwell Webster. But he's got to try and keep hold of it. Now, these guys are up into 7th. You know, Paul LeMay is not far ahead whatsoever. The leader himself is Paul Crabb, and he is currently only, where is he? 18 seconds up the road. Under downs a further 5 seconds. We've still got 6 laps. Edwards' time is on a 1:23.29. Under downs on a 1:23.66. However, the man in the middle, Michael LeMay, has just done a 1:24.35. So Michael LeMay is a possibility, but do we think Underdown is?
Well, I think it's just going to be too far at this point. When you get further and further up the grid like this, it does mean that the gaps between the different cars are a lot bigger than they are further down, where we're seeing it as still a big train battling it over those final places inside the top 10. It's very different once you get inside that top 10 and start edging yourself towards the top 5 even, as these guys are doing now. So while they might be able to pick off LeMay with not too much difficulty, it might even be difficult to get to Ben Underdown, because you've got to remember there's not that many laps remaining. 6 laps including this one. It's barely 10 minutes of racing. In fact, it isn't 10 minutes of racing.
No.
It's less than that. So it's not a long time for these guys to actually make this move or even catch up to Ben Underdown just up in front. Currently in 5th place, but 4.5 seconds in front of LeMay, who they haven't even passed yet.
Yeah, and I don't think they're going to get him again down into the hairpin. I think LeMay, of course, Michael LeMay, because we do have his brother in the race as well. Paul LeMay currently down in 10th place. Obviously, these guys from Two Brothers Racing here. Michael LeMay's doing a stellar job so far. There is no reason whatsoever why he's even got to think about moving over. At the end of the day, it's down to Simon Edwards to make the move. And if LeMay wants to defend his heart out, he can defend his heart out. And I'm hoping that he does put up an absolutely extraordinary fight and gives these 3 guys something to think about, because they are Simon Edwards, they are Luke Maxwell, and they are Dan Webster. You know, so at the end of the day, they've got to be trying to make this move. Zach Sweeney, is that Juan O'Leary? Yes, it is Juan O'Leary in the booth with me this evening. Dan Webster has gone wide. He's now trying to make that move on the inside of Luke Maxwell. They are side by side going in down into turn 1. I think Webster's kind of, it looked like he got a little bit squeezed there, Ewan, and had to pop it up onto the curb, maybe to try and avoid the contact that might have happened if he stayed there.
Just about being careful at this point for these 3 drivers in behind, because I certainly think that this is going to be their last position unless they start fighting it between themselves. And I think it will be smart to wait until they're all through on Michael LeMay to really start challenging one another, because if they start doing it now, they do run the risk of not overtaking LeMay at all. And he's certainly there for the taking, although Maxwell feeling very much under threat now from Dan Webster on the outside line, very late on the brakes into the hairpin, and he'll use the banking of that corner to maybe make his move. And he might even have a look at the inside of Simon Edwards. He won't, but he will get Luke Maxwell, somewhat surprisingly. But it does show just how late you can brake on the outside line there, and just how much speed you can carry into the corner and carry through it because of their banking.
Yeah, Maxwell is looking to come back on the inside of Dan Webster here as we're going up through Redman, through Hobbs, and down into Mike Knight, which is the penultimate corner before we go round last corner. And I think the interesting thing about this, I think if we could sit back and say, well done to any driver, I think we've got to look at the well done that Michael LeMay is currently doing. Yes, he may be benefiting from these 3 exceptionally fast guys behind him fighting, but Michael LeMay is still there. He's there on merit. He's got, what, 3 laps to defend this position, and at the end of the day, he's doing a stellar job. Is Dan Webster and Simon Edwards fighting, helping him out? Absolutely. But Michael LeMay is not going to care. He's sitting in 6th place and he's probably sitting there going, please guys, keep fighting, more of the same. And out of all the 3 of them, though, Ewan, I will say, Dan Webster looks the more racier one as we go back onto this long back straight before they come into the hairpin again. And it looks like Dan Webster is more likely to make the move on Simon Edwards rather than Simon Edwards making the move on Michael LeMay. And there he goes, straight away through at the hairpin. Oh! Now, based on... Go on, sorry, off you go.
He's confident on the brakes, certainly, and you saw it there again into the hairpin. He's just so much quicker than everyone around him for some reason. I don't know quite how he's managed it, but as this race goes on, he's just getting better and very nearly made his way back down the inside there into turn 8. Outside line again, it's not going to work for him, but yeah, very, very impressive, and it just makes you wonder quite what could have happened if indeed he hadn't had his problems earlier in the race.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul Crabb has got an exponential read. He's about 7 seconds ahead at the moment. Buson in second, Greatorex in third. Now, obviously, the same 2 and 3 are exactly the same, but here goes Dan Webster again. What is happening with Simon Edwards and Luke Maxwell? Because Dan Webster's made his way through past Michael LeMay, but they can't get through, and I don't understand the situation here. What's happening? Because Michael LeMay now is going to benefit surely from trying to keep up with Dan Webster, and try and benefit from his draft going up the long back straight, because it is a really effective draft, and if he can hang on there, he might be able to hold back Simon Edwards and Luke Maxwell. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a big ask, and we're praying that he probably can, but I've got a funny feeling. Here goes Simon Edwards now making a move up the inside, and Luke Maxwell going to follow him through. And in one space of a corner, has Michael LeMay lost 2 spots? No, but he's definitely lost 1 to Simon Edwards, but the question has to be asked, why did that take so long? Why did Simon Edwards not be able to get that through, but seemed to up his game as soon as Dan Webster went past him?
Well, I think LeMay was a little bit more cautious into the braking area, really. He seemed to almost want to let that position go at that point there. But also, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but Simon Edwards slowed down quite a lot through the mid part of that hairpin there, and it slowed Luke Maxwell because he was on the same line, and so it prevented him from going through on LeMay as well. That could have just gotten Simon Edwards this 7th place. It could have just short it up for him. There's only 2 laps to go now as they start the penultimate one right now, so I think he's going to be out the water. He's going to be okay to put another point into his rival from last season. But very interestingly, Paul Crabb is going to surprise them all here. This victory for him would put him on top of the points tally if things stay as they are, and it doesn't look like they're going to change enough for Simon Edwards to retain his lead.
Oh, Michael LeMay went in a little bit deep then to upward there, and Luke Maxwell almost followed him as well. We're going to pick up, once this pans out down the straight, we're going to pick up the Damien G and Graham Brown battle. They're in a freeway with Phil Jocelyn as we can see Luke Maxwell go through. Same scenario though, is he going to make his stick this time? He is. Let's go down into this little freeway battle. Graham Brown and Damien G trying to chase down Phil Jocelyn in front currently at the moment. This is your battle down for 13th, 14th and 15th. We're on the last lap now. Paul Crabb has taken the last lap with a 7-second lead, I might add. So this currently is your closest battle on the racetrack. But it just goes to show that they're battling all the way down the field. In front of that is David Rolliston under attack from Phil Jocelyn on the last lap. So really, we've still got little battles that can happen. There's a gap between now Ben Underdown, Dan Webster and Simon Edwards. Luke Maxwell still got Michael LeMay right behind him, Ewan, but at the moment, it's kind of all settled down for the final lap, really, isn't it? Because everybody's quite sort of a distance apart now, which seems a bit weird considering how close they were earlier on.
Well, it does, but it happens over the course of a race, of course, and everybody realises that they're getting towards the end now, and so people do just start to accept where they've gotten to in this race and where they're likely to finish as well. But there's been a remarkable bit of symmetry, actually, from what we saw at Spa. We've got, obviously, a different race winner here. Simon Edwards down in 7th on this occasion. It's going to be Paul Crabb with the win. But interestingly, Mike Bousson and Austin Grettrex finishing in that 2nd and 3rd place for the 2nd week in a row. That's exactly where they were at Spa. They'll finish here again at Okayama.
Yep, here we go. Crabb comes round the final corner. Paul Crabb takes the victory in round 2 at Okayama. Did we see Slipperama? Let me know down in the YouTube comments below when on the watch back. But Paul Crabb takes the victory. Bousson in 2nd. Grettrex there in 3rd. And what we didn't mention is this man Oliver Ettridge, one of the biggest gainers through the whole race. He got up 7 places, and that's the gap to Ben Underdown and Dan Webster, literally less than a second as these guys cross the line. But Phil Jocelyn and David Rolliston here are still having an absolute ding-dong going into the last corner, and it looks like Phil Jocelyn may look at staying behind Graham Brown. Yes, he does. Yeah, well, that was an exciting 16 laps, wasn't it?
It was an exciting 16 laps, a good race indeed, and largely as well due to the fact that we had 3 of the top 4 dropping down the order, or 3 of the top 5 at least, dropping down the order very early on in that one. In the end, Dan Webster, Simon Edwards and Luke Maxwell managed to get to 6th, 7th and 8th in the order, but at a time they were in the very bottom of the standings, so that definitely contributed to the amount of overtaking we saw during that one.
Yeah, absolutely, and here are the race results. Paul Crabb is in 1st place, Mike Bousson 2nd, Austin Grettrex in 3rd, Oliver Ettridge up 7, biggest gainer of the day, absolutely stellar job from Oliver, up into 4th place. Ben Underdown hung on with a 2nd gap over Dan Webster for 6th, Simon Edwards 7th, Luke Maxwell 8th, Michael LeMay, stellar job, finishes ahead of his brother Paul LeMay in 9th and 10th respectively. Dominic Lang-Webb in 11th, David Rolliston in 12th, Phil Jocelyn 13th, Graham Brown 14th, Damien G 15th, Dave Dowson down in 16th, and Patrick Charlton looked like he never got going, so therefore that's why he's dropped all the way down the order. Well, on to Interlagos, another 16-lap race. These guys are going to have to try and kind of do the same thing. I think it's interesting the fact that we've got, Mike Bousson and Austin Guttorix in exactly the same place, as they were last time. Are they going to be looking, we've got a different leader, Simon Webster, sorry, excuse me. Simon Edwards, Dan Webster and Luke Maxwell are going to look for some kind of retribution, aren't they, next time around?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, they're going to want to make amends for it, but not in a case of they feel hostile towards anyone else, I don't think. It's just a case of they want to do a little bit better next time. But you can't have 12 good races in a season, really. You've got to have a couple of bad ones at some point. So they'll just have to accept it. They will. They've still got points, obviously. They're still finished inside the top 10, so they've got to accept that and still be pleased with that. And then, move forward to the next races, to some more familiar tracks, to some more tracks where people are going to be a bit more happy to race there. To be honest, Interlagos certainly. Le Mans won't be bad, and Watkins Glen won't be terrible either for most of the drivers, I wouldn't imagine. So they'll enjoy themselves a little bit more, I think, rather than having to deal with this circuit, which I don't think has been a favourite of everybody's.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think it could be a favourite of Paul Crabb, who we have brought into the booth. Paul, welcome into the booth, young man. I hope you're well.
Very pleased with myself.
Very pleased. Well, you led from start to finish, mate. I'd be pleased with myself if I could manage to actually keep the SR10 on the track. But enough about me. You've went out, you've won, and you won comfortably by 7 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I lucked into an easy race by the first lap incident, which seemed to clear out everyone behind me. So.
Yeah, we're just looking at it now. Dan Webster and Luke Maxwell. Dan went in a little bit too hot, locked the brakes up, spun both of them round. Mind you, They did end up at the back of the field, and they did manage to get back to 6th, 7th and 8th. So Simon Edwards had another incident with Mike Bousson thoroughly back. So you were aided, but look, right, I'm not going to use that as an excuse to take away the pleasure that you've got, Paul, of going out with that victory. You've won, dude. This is put you on top of the standards. So go away and celebrate, mate. You know what I mean? You've got to be happy with that, surely.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. I mean, I always go well at Okayama. For some reason, the track seems to suit what I do. So I'm disappointed if I'm not in the first few in a race. So it was good, but very not really. I didn't have any problems. So not a lot really to say other than it was it was as straightforward as it comes, really.
Oh, I love that. It was just really easy, James. I was taking it easy. It was just like a Sunday drive in my old Ford AC Cobra around the hills of the Lake District. I don't know, Paul.
I wasn't taking it easy because I know Mike Bousson was behind, and he's pretty rapid around here. So.
Yeah, absolutely. But well done, mate. Congratulations on your victory this evening. Go and chill out. We'll see you next week at Interlagos. Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to before you leave the booth?
I'll just give a shout out to Daryl Taylor. He's not here this week. He's on holiday, but he's obviously taken over administration. So thanks, Daryl, for keeping it going.
Stellar job from him. Right. Sorry, Paul. I will say goodbye. Sorry, mate. I've moved you by without actually saying goodbye. So, take care, buddy. Have a great week.
Yeah,
Oh dear. Right, so let's bring in the double third place man from round 1 and round 2. He's going to be going to at least 2 better next time at Interlagos. Is the one and only Austin Guttorix. Austin, how are you, buddy?
Not bad, James. Yourself?
Mate, I'm always good. I've had a really good week. I'm just watched you claim another 3rd place. Now, I've said this already, and regardless if it was aided by the incidents with Dan Webster, Simon Edwards and Luke Maxwell, I'm just going to say stunning drive, mate. Well done, and a great 3rd place for you.
Thank you, buddy. It was more about just keeping it on the track for me. I think my first lap was about 5 minutes before qualifying. I completely forgot about racing. I know when we spoke last week, I don't normally race this league, and I'm trying to do it all this season. And I thought, oh, crap, quick, let's hurry up. And I've never got on well with this track, so I'll take a P3.
Mate, I would take a P3 as well. Not many people did, to be fair. There was a lot of people who were like, no, we don't like this track, James. It's not going to happen. Ewan was talking to drivers and everybody, and Simon Edwards was just like, no, I don't like it either. But it seemed to work for you, mate. Yeah, it was helped. But you can still, as you say, kept it on the black stuff. And I think that's one of the most important things at a track that they're calling Slippy Armour in the SR10.
Definitely. In any track in this car, as soon as, I know we've mentioned it before,
Yep.
and everybody will mention it, but as soon as the tyres start going off, just keeping it on the track is half the battle towards the second half of the race. Like I said, I had a little bit of a gap behind me, so I didn't bother pushing too much further forward and just kept it for third.
Mate, it's points, isn't it, at the end of the day? And you've had 2 podiums in 2 rounds. We go next week to Interlagos. Set an alarm on your phone, Austin. That might be a good shout, man, buddy. That will give you a little bit of a reminder that you've got a race on a Thursday, if you can, of course. Are you expecting the same result? Because I'd love to sit here and say, welcome in, Austin Gutierrez, winner at Interlagos.
To be honest, that's not going to happen, James. I'm on holiday from 2 weeks from Monday.
Mate.
So when we get back, a possibility. But no, these next 2 weeks I won't be here.
Oh, Interlagos and Le Mans. All right, so I'll turn around on the 13th of October then and say Austin Gutierrez winner at Watkins Glen. How about that?
Yeah, we can live with that. Hopefully that happens. We'll see.
All right, mate. All right, well, you have a great holiday, buddy. Where are you off to anywhere good?
Dominican Republic.
Oh, fair enough. That's probably nicer than the UK. I'm not going to lie currently. Anyone you want to give a shout out to, buddy, before you leave the booth?
Just you for the broadcast, all the people that run the league and everyone that raced this evening. I hope everybody is doing well and has a great evening.
No, buddy, excellent stuff. Well done, Austin. And we'll catch you in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you very much. See you then.
All right, let's bring in Simon Edwards into the booth. Simon, welcome in. I'm not sure whether to sit here and say commiserations or to sit here and say, Simon Edwards, what a stunning drive back to get yourself back into 7th place.
Use the latter, and then I'll be in a better mood.
Yeah, I tell you what, let's not focus on the negatives because, it's a tough one to sit here, Simon. I think this is what people don't quite understand about league racing is when you've got the quality that's in this league, you are expected to have close racing. Once you've got that quality in close proximity of each other, we're not robots. We will make mistakes. Yes, there was a mistake from Mike Bousson, and I think he'll probably be hands up and admit it. But it's how we come back from the mistakes. And I think you've just kind of shown, and Dan Webster, to be honest, and Luke Maxwell, how to recover from them mistakes or incidents that, yes, didn't involve you. But that was stunning, mate. Quality to get back to where you got back to.
Yeah, thank you. I was down a bit at top speed as well, so I couldn't stay with Dan, so I was really annoyed. But the car was all right otherwise. I was only maybe losing 2/10 down that straight because that's only where it really matters.
Yeah.
But it was annoying. I couldn't stay with Dan.
Yeah.
And we weren't that far away from what would have been 5th for him if he'd got up to him as well. So, but yeah, I thought after I got away with that first incident, managing to hold up for the first mistake, I got a little bit of a punt from behind, but I don't think it damaged me at all. And I thought, that's my one get out of jail free. I won't have any more big moments like that. And then I had a little wobble, and it got Mike close to me, and I think he just thought, this is my chance.
See, from a driver's point of view of this car, Simon, I think it would have been hard for Mike because you ended up in that terrible vortex of V going into a corner, which we all absolutely dread being in because we know somebody's going to be trying to send it up the inside. Did Mike try and send it up the inside? I think he had a go. Did he go in a little bit quicker and wasn't expecting the door to close? Absolutely. But I do want to touch on something. One thing that caught my eye during the race, and me and Ewan were talking about it, is you did kind of get held up by Michael LeMay. You couldn't find a way through until almost Dan Webster passed you and went past Michael yourself. Any idea why that was? Because Michael LeMay was doing a stunning job, but you just couldn't find your way through for at least 3 or 4 laps at one point.
Yeah, it was a bit of confusion in the end. I think I'll speak to Paul. I think he was trying to let me through, but it was my top speed couldn't quite get to him because he had a draft as well. So and I didn't want to just send it because I might have taken the front car in front of him out into the hairpin. And then I think he was trying to let me through when I showed my nose on the outside of the hairpin, and I think we just all got confused, and I lost about an extra 2 seconds there. But otherwise, I was just struggling with a little bit of top speed to get to him. That's all. I was just struggling out of that bottom hairpin up to the top hairpin. But I enjoyed it. So yeah, but I thought we were going to end up crashing because I didn't know if he was letting me through, not letting me through.
Yeah.
So yeah. But and I think he'd lost a lot of time himself. He didn't need to let me through. I had to make my way through, but it helped me get further forward because then I could attack the car in front with. Yeah.
But isn't it a tough one when you're obviously not hitting top end from a driver's point of view? If I had a driver who I was expecting to be rapid, as you so are rapid, and you're not able to quite get there, I wouldn't kind of have a clue what to do with you either. And you know, because at the same point I'm sitting there thinking, well, don't take me out. Here we go, son. There's the door. Go for it. But then you can't quite get there. So I guess from Michael LeMay's point of view, I understand where that kind of confusion would have come from.
Yeah. I'd rather him just race me, to be honest with you. But like you say, it's difficult from somebody else's point of view if they think they've got a car, they're holding somebody up and they don't want to race them, if you know what I mean, because they're racing somebody else. So yeah, I can understand why everybody got confused.
Yeah, it happens, buddy. But look, we go into Interlagos next week. I love the circuit. You know, obviously I'm not driving. I'm up here, but you know, I absolutely love that circuit. Any opinions on Interlagos before we let you go?
Well, if you've got stars from 0 to 10 for tracks, Okayama's no stars.
Yeah.
And Interlagos is 10.
Oh, woo! Simon, you've gone up in my expectations, young man. I love Interlagos. But look, dude, is there anybody you want to give a shout out to before you leave the booth this evening?
I'll give a shout out to Mike so that he doesn't feel too bad. And I'll have him off somewhere. No, I won't.
If that happens at Interlagos, mate, I'm not going to recap back to this conversation.
No, please don't. No, I should have. Yeah, it won't happen.
Right, we'll edit that out. Ignore them comments. I'm sure Simon's not going to go out and torpedo Mike down through the centre S's at Interlagos. Okay?
No, but the next corner.
The next one after, yeah. But there you go, Simon. Well done, mate. Great recovery back to 7th, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, thank you.
No worries, buddy, at all. Well, there you go, guys. That is Simon Edwards, all done and dusted, joining us tonight. So now we bring back Ewan. While I was having a good old chinwag with the drivers. Ewan, how can we sum up this evening's racing?
Oh, difficult, I think, is probably a good word to use for a lot of them. We saw that with the amount of top drivers that ended up so far down. Obviously, they fought their way through in the end, but the incidents obviously didn't help them throughout that one. And it turned into an interesting race. It didn't end up being quite as difficult to overtake as I thought because of the actual pace difference between some of the drivers that ended up together. But it still produced a good one in the end. So it was a good race. But yeah, I think a lot of the drivers are glad to see that one behind them now, and looking forward to a couple of more positive circuits coming up.
Absolutely. Well, there you go, guys. That brings the broadcast to the end this evening. We look forward to seeing you in Interlagos next week. As I say, if you are watching it back or watching it live, hit the subscribe button, turn on the bells for notifications, and don't forget to give the video a big old thumbs up. It goes a long way. And let us know down in the comments section what you would like to see. If there's anything we're missing out on, that would be absolutely incredible too. But all that's left for me to say now is from myself, James Parfitt, and Ewan O'Leary. Take care. Have a great week. And you never know, we might see you on a track sometime. Good night.